Hi, everybody. David Noor back with another one of our fun episodes of Are You SKO 2026 Ready? And I am with a longtime friend. I coached this fabulous executive years ago. We've spent some quality time together in various places. Randy Seidl is joining me. Hello, Randy.
Hey, Nora, how are you doing?
Good to see you, and great to have you on this important topic for our audience. Just fresh off of our Relationship Economics Summit. This was last week, and I got to tell you, it refills my cup. Randy's been to a couple of these in the past, and once a year I get great executive clients, partners, friends together, and from broad industries at a fabulous place. And last week, we had roughly 50 executives there, and the consistent feedback was the best one yet. So it's great to have Randy. And today, if you haven't made any of the previous sessions, I interview really well-seasoned, well-respected revenue leaders, CEOs on how do we get beyond SKOs as an event. And I believe it's a change management platform. I believe it's a launching platform. I believe the scale of the excitement that you begin with, your SKO can and should last throughout the year. And the real opportunity is don't just make it a great rah-rah event and, everybody goes back and keeps doing what they've always done. How do we really leverage that in a more meaningful, more impactful way? So, Randy, let's start with those that may not know you. I know there's only a few people in the world that's the case, but talk a little about where you've been, what you've done over the years, just highlight of the career.
Absolutely appreciate it. And Nora, thank you. You've been a great mentor and coach over the years, and I think we actually first met at a SKO at Sun, and typically these big SKOs, whatever corporate people or marketing people, no offense, bringing these speakers, whatever, and they're just garbage. And all of a sudden you're talking about relationships and kind of how you leverage them and what you do and how you do it. And I get lots of compliments over the years for me having a great network and relationship, but you're really the one that kind of helped me put in place something of a process in terms of really being deliberate around that. So that was kind of a fantastic experience, and been great friends ever since. But
very kind, very kind. And do you believe that was 2012, I think, or something like that? We've known each other all these years.
No way. Jeez. Crazy. But anyway, by way of background, was at EMC early on. Was there 85 to 96. I started off in telemarketing, eventually became one of the VPs of sales, then moved on to go run a VAR integration company. Basically, I ran some few smaller companies you would have never heard of, and then besides EMC, the larger companies people would have heard of is HP, Storage Tech, and Sun. I finished off on the corporate side at HP, is running the Americas, and then the U.S. business, which was about $9 billion and 4,000 people. And then that was about 10, 12 years ago, and then went out and have been doing different advising, consulting, boards, top talent recruiting on the recruiting side, and sales community, which you've been very, very helpful with. And anybody can go to salescommunity.com, join that for free. I've got an impressive list of advisors, over 1,100. And then my real kind of full-time job now since January has been running an awesome company that really helps make it rain. Rain Enhancement Technologies, stock symbol is RAIN. If you want to pull that one up, that might be of interest to folks as well. But just there's a huge drought condition, especially in the Western United States, that people are really not familiar with, and just some real tough situations. We've got some two of our kind of early sites we're doing, one an organic dairy farm in Colorado, another one for snow enhancement in Utah, and we've got a real strong pipeline. So just something completely different I knew nothing about. There's our we call it our WETA in the lower left hand corner. So it's also if you're in Boston, people say weather WETA. but weather enhancement technology array shoots up negatively charged particles, and when it's going to rain or snow makes it 15% more. So that's been a fantastic experience.
I'm fascinated by, and when you first told me about this, I was like, this is wild. You're like, imagine a football, like, a mechanism that shoots, I guess, these isotopes and whatnot in the clouds. And that's amazing. That is, leave it to you to go find some really interesting technology to get your arms wrapped around. So,
well, fortunately, I found me. There's some friends that were involved, so I didn't really have much in finding it. But
I love it. So let's talk about SKOs. You've worked with, Randy, countless CROs. What separates those who scale their impact from those who just scale their activity?
yeah, sorry, you broke up. Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. So you've worked with a lot of CROs in planning and thinking about their SKO. What separates those that create and scale their impact from that event, typically beginning of the year, and those that just scale activity, those that really just create a lot of activity versus impact?
Yeah, so I think it's you kind of alluded to. I think it's an ongoing. It's just not a one-off event, but certainly the sales kickoff is a great opportunity to say, what are you going to reinforce in terms of what you have been doing. Certainly acknowledge the rah-rah in terms of the top performers, the wins, leveraging best practices, but it's always an opportunity to kind of reset for the next year. Kind of what are the marching orders? What are the expectations? What are the behaviors that you want done, differently and better? And again, not to toot your horn, but certainly on the relationship side, in this day of kind of Zoom and people hiding behind everything, relationships just have just really fallen off dramatically. And we can talk all day long about why relationships are important, but I think you've got a lot of I'll say maybe younger leaders per se that are certainly it's great to leverage the tech stack, which is amazing and incredible, and kind of go through all that. But there's something for that human interaction, especially in enterprise selling. But even if you're a SMB company selling HVAC systems as an example, right? Okay, HVAC is an HVAC, but if you kind of you show up and you're clean cut and maybe you exude more confidence in your ability to deliver, and if somebody else is going to be a lower price, at least maybe get last look because whoever it is, the husband or wife or whoever the decision maker is, says, hey, well, this is good person. Hey, let me give him or her another shot. So just one of several examples of certainly areas how you can help. But in summary, just a great opportunity of a leader to get everybody in and kind of reset what you want things to be going forward. And the last thing I'll chime in on is you really need to make sure that there's a kind of measurement system around that. You can't just a lot of times people just say and do, and all of a sudden, this is another year. So and so leader is just kind of saying this, and there's never going to be any inspection as to what's being no inspection on what's being expected.
Love that. So talk about, in thinking about the SKO, what do you believe leaders underinvest?
Probably in the preparedness of it. And wherever I was, marketing would say we've never had we've never had sales leaders really this engaged. I'm like, well, what could be more important than this, right? So it just really it's your show, it's your team, and then from a operating expense budget at the same time. So one hand, marketing may love me because I'm going to be so involved. But the other hand, we had Brooke Summers as an example. It's been great over the years. So I bring her in and just say, look, they're wasting money and all this kind of stupid. They're overpaying. They're not negotiating. Okay, the quality of the food or drink or the venue, we could do this for. We don't need to be in a conference room where we can go off-site to somewhere else. It's going to be a lot less than what the hotel charges, but just a lot of the little things, just kind of get in the detail of kind of, what you're doing and how you're doing it. And is it something that you would like to be at, right? People are showing up saying they should be leaving saying, okay, I left much more armed, much more equipped, much more knowledgeable to go help me sell more because I'm taking time away from my family to be at the SKO. So therefore, I should be helping out my family because I'm going to be more productive in my job.
And you bring up a great point. You know, Brooke Summers of the world they make, you know, your events. We've done some work together, and you know, she makes those events like incredible. I mean, it just the level of detail, the level of, and for audience, we love promoting great people, and Brooke is
There you go.
Brooke is one of them right there. Brooke is one of them. She's amazing. She does amazing work. We've worked together probably a half a dozen times. Randy, I know you also have engaged her several times, and she's just amazing and exactly right in understanding the outcomes you're after, and she'll kind of orchestrate and curate the whole thing, which becomes invaluable. How do you justify it to the finance people who ask you, Randy, you're spending a bunch of money on this thing. What's the ROI on it?
Well, I'd say number one, just, there's a lot of areas, but I think kind of just retention. So if it helps you, if you save one, I'll make it up. You have maybe the, revenue, especially if it's, SaaS software company might be $3 million. There's probably $2.9 million of that. That's profit. So, I'm going to say literally if it helps you save, one rep, but, from a retention perspective alone, if you're able to retain whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more people than otherwise you might not, is the one hand. The other side is then to say, okay, if the team can be 10% more productive because they're going to this event than what they would otherwise would, what does that mean for you? So
that's how you justify it. Nice.
I'd look at it. Yeah.
So the best, certainly the jobs you've been in, and the chances we've had a chance to work together. But Randy, the best companies you've seen, how do they tie SKO themes to field execution throughout the year? Beyond the excitement, beyond that week together in January, how have you seen them roll that out in the field and tie it to those reps kind of becoming the best version of themselves throughout the year?
Yeah, well, I think you need to have a consistent theme. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. We had one time when I was at HP, SEAT, which stood for sell everything on the truck. And then we'd have to a Starbucks cup as an example, and we'd say, okay, server, storage, networking, services, whatever else we had going on, cloud, so you'd have you have to come up with some maybe cute way to follow on with those. Another time we had partnering was a big thing. We wanted to make sure we're leveraging the channel, and I used some acronym which I forgot now, where each letter in partner was something about what we're trying to do with the go to market. So it's kind of saying whatever that theme is, and then making sure that it's a consistent messaging, consistent inspection of what you're doing it. And then when you're doing, whatever, you've got updated notes to the fields for, weekly or monthly in terms of what you're doing, if it's just a constant thing. Holy moly, I think that was me with another 50 pounds, but so just so you make sure, and it's really starts with the top, right? Leaders have to be exuding kind of what they do what you say and say what you do,
and really setting that. So a lot of people talk about servant leadership, really the leader setting the tone and carrying that theme in the field throughout the years. What I've seen also work really, really well. So a lot of leaders you and I know obsess over content and production. What's an ingredient that is missed in that show, and you've put on big stages? I remember the Vegas event where there were like thousands of reps in that big event. Beyond that, how do you drive sustained impact? What did you do after my keynote? How did you and your sales leadership carry that SKO excitement in the field? How did you make sure that it translated into what they were doing in the field?
Yes, I think again, it's just in inspection, right? So if you're in the call it windshield time, if you're there's always some hot button of something or other, whether it's a new product or new offering, if you want to kind of quiz somebody, so to speak, on that. If you're on a sales call, if it's whatever, some new AI offering that we have, and I might be the executive and you're the rep, and I'll say, okay, hey Nora, go ahead and explain. And then you see real time on the sales call how well the person did or didn't do. If they crush it, great. If not, then afterwards you're done. I'm big on kind of giving and getting feedback, but you always say then, okay, after a sales call as an example, or even if you're on a Zoom, hey, Nora, can I give you some, first of all, I'd say, do you have any feedback for me? And they'd be like, holy cow, I can't believe we got an executive, asking me for feedback. And eventually people figure out I was genuine, and then I would get some. And then I'd say, of course, then you got the opportunity next to say, okay, hey, Nora, can I give you some feedback? Yes. Okay, well, you see that you totally had no clue in what we're trying to sell here on this AI offering. So you really got to get your act together, right? Or conversely, it could be, wow, you really nailed it. That's fantastic. And then the leader taking that for, you may not, if it was bad, you may not want to shout out your name, but then if I'm on some all hands call, I can just say, hey, look, I was on calls last week out west, and a couple of reps really didn't know what's going on. The reason we said that at the SKO, the reason we're following up with this training, the reason we're doing this and this and that is because that's what we want you to be selling. And you have to know what the heck it is that we're doing in order to sell more. Otherwise, you're not going to have your job. Or conversely, hey, I was with Nor, you say the name, did a fantastic job on message. That's exactly the behavior we want. Love that. And everybody else should be doing as well as Nor does. If you do that, you're going to make a lot more money because you're going to sell more, and life's going to continue to be great.
For our audience, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Randy Seidl, longtime sales executive, runs Sales Community. Check out salescommunity.com. More recently joined Rain Enhancement Technology as their CEO. And we're talking about really scaling impact and creating impact beyond the SKO. Randy, one of the things I remember was you're also really big on enabling your managers and really make sure that they're accountable for not just the planning, but as you said, inspecting it after the fact. Talk a little about enabling your managers. What did you do with them, independent or around the SKO?
Yeah, so my take is it's really the first line manager. So depending upon the size of the company, at an HP, we'd have the first line, then you have district managers, and you have directors, and you have VPs and SVPs, something like that. But it was those, for whoever in your organization, whoever is that first line sales managers, to me, they're really the ones that run the company. So you got to put all your attention on them, kind of what they're doing, how they're doing it, how are you empowering them? Now, kind of leveraging AI is huge, and a lot of the tech stack is huge, but, really making sure that they are empowered when you go around and do QBRs. Most of the time people do QBRs and everybody's, oh, this is going to be painful. I got to spend all this time preparing and, it's awful. I don't get anything out of it. My take is you shouldn't have to prepare anything because you already have, we can get, ops or finance, whoever can pull up your pipeline and talk about issues. I want you to say, what is it that help, what help do you need? How can we help deliver that for you so you can get things done? And too many times that follow up, and I'll tie in the QBRs to the, that ongoing process. But, really, what are you doing to make sure that everybody's being helped as much as possible? And wherever possible, it was fantastic. I working for Dave Donatelli and then Mark Hurd, rest in peace. But their empowering culture was insane. It was like well, Randy, you got to go faster, got to go harder. I'm like, I can't without but violating some rules somewhere. So just being really given that decision making ability down as low as possible is absolutely critical. A lot of times you're going to get, finance or HR or ops is going to get all up in arms. Oh, we have to have these meetings to review this or review that. I'm like, okay, they're empowered. They have their metrics. They're tied to usually profitability and revenue. Okay, those are the right things. Okay, let's just go.
Talk about the other thing I remember, whether it was the CIOD or the transformation, initiatives you had in our work together. You always had, like most CROs, Randy, you've had some rock stars in your team in the field that are just, that the classic A players that are just phenomenal, kind of the elite sellers. How did you leverage them around SKO beyond recognizing them as,
Yeah,
top East, top West? How did you
absolutely.
leverage those top sellers?
Absolutely. Great question. And had done this several companies, but just kind of leveraging the best practices, right? I mean, a lot of people want to bring in outside trainers and all that, and there could be for some topics like relationships as an example. You bring somebody in from the outside, but as in my travels or any of my direct reports to say, okay, who's doing great stuff, and then you have those top performers or who's ever doing those great best practices then come together to present, because then you have first of all, it doesn't cost you anything, which is great. But then also then you have, there's no better way to get respect and time and attention than, some, average rep or, and even if I'm good saying, wow, okay, here's somebody who's my peer who's out there kind of doing that. And that just works out to be like one of the best things ever. And at the same time too, people could say, hey, we have a challenge around this or that, and say, okay, great, go get couple SEs, go get a couple reps, or get somebody from finance, and maybe it's a global team and you're a SWAT team, and go figure out the problem. You come back with you can give them a framework how to go through it, and then come back with recommendations. And that's also that's a great thing to do.
You were kind enough to mention my work at SKOs. Randy, one of the things I love doing is interviewing a panel of these elite sellers. And as you said, love hearing from them what they do and how they do it. And you look in the audience, and I'm telling you, light bulbs go off from their peers that are thinking,
right,
he can do that, so can I. And I wonder, in that account, would that strategy work or that approach work? Or I love how he brought our CFO and he brought our CTO, Casey Choi, right? Let's bring Casey Choi into an account and attach them at the hip with their technical architects and let them do their thing. And it makes you look like a hero. And some of the best sellers or all the great leaders you've surrounded yourself with over the years that have really exemplified those best practices makes the audience just eat out of their hands of things that they do naturally that could also help the reps in the field.
Absolutely.
So switch gears. How do you think about doing SKOs differently year over year, particularly if you've been in a company for a while? They can seem like stale, or they can seem like rinse and repeat. How do you ensure it isn't rinse and repeat?
For sure. Unfortunately, I think in a lot of companies, you've got different leadership coming in. So everybody always wants to kind of meet, a lot of times, depending upon, if it's a large organization, that's going to be the probably primary time where they do get face time. So I think, what doesn't get stale is that kind of relationship aspect. So making sure there is time for kind of one-on-one and interaction, and they realize that, whoever the leadership is that they're, sincere, genuine, authentic in each and every way. You always have new themes. So, everybody, I know you've got, great offerings now in terms of helping around the, leveraging AI as well. But, that's a kind of new bent to everything. And I think having a kind of fun, genuine, aspect to it as well. We'd always try and, come up with some way to, jazz it up. I had one time, where I guess most of the time we're in Vegas, so there's at some altitude, and we had a back room, so I wanted to be there, and so I had kind of ran through, and it was a lot. I think it was almost a quarter-mile run once I went around everywhere, and then I had to jump up on stage, and I was completely out of breath, which took me a while to get back to being able to breathe normally, but okay, wow, hey, Randy's a real person and can do that. And we did some other did a Blues Brothers thing that Brooke had helped with. We had I think it might have been me and Chris Riley were kind of singing, and then people didn't realize then that it was in fact us, because we're all dressed up. And the other time we rappelled down, but just kind of doing some fun goofy stuff. I think can be really worthwhile. And then when you're, I think, on stage or presenting, just doing kind of just random shout outs that come to mind. So whether it's, complimenting, individuals from sales calls that you're on, or it's always easy to, kind of bring the channel partners. I think that's a great thing. And I would always try and bring in, whether it was at the QBRs or field road shows or SKOs, bring in the channel. I mean, these days, most companies, I think, have some type of, channel or channel partners. And a lot of times they say, oh, we can't have them here, can't have them there. But, if they're really going to be part of your team and going to be inclusive, bring them in, because you're able to get a huge factor to, leverage, 10 or 20x in terms of, feet on the street and sales coverage and pre-sales resources.
You also always did a great job of bringing customers in, and you had customers
too. Yes,
on
right.
panels talk about kind of what we liked and what we're struggling with and what you guys did well. And that also really resonated with the team.
Yes. Great point.
So I know you advise a lot of CROs and a lot of sales teams. Give them your top 3 advice as they're planning their SKOs now. What should they really prioritize?
I'd say put themselves in the shoes of a sales rep or a first line individual contributor, whether it's in sales or pre-sales, and not that, finance or ops or marketing don't matter, but, they're the ones that are going to be bringing in the money. What is it that you want them, knowing, saying, and doing? So from kind of a marching orders, how do you ensure, because you can't be on every sales call all the time, but how can you give them the tools and the template to go ahead and execute what they're going to execute? How do you, since I mentioned tools, I guess secondly, how do you make sure that they are leveraging the tools that you have? Because a lot of times the tech stack in companies could be overkill, it could be underkill. Okay, how is it that they really can leverage that? And then third, I'd say, just from an AI perspective, how is that, being leveraged? Because for a lot of people, especially those that are older in career, that's a whole new thing. But again, just making it easy to say, okay, here's again what I expect and what I'm going to be inspecting for.
That's awesome. For our audience, if you joined us late, you missed a good one. Randy Seidl, longtime revenue leader, longtime advisor, coach, executive, CEO of Rain Enhancement Technologies at the moment. We've been talking about scaling impact from your SKO, and it's a series I've been doing on Are You SKO 2026 Ready? On that note, again, I would encourage you, if you get a chance, check out davidnoor.com is my personal website, where I talk about some of these key topics, and from moderating panels of executives and leaders to really bringing in insightful conversations into the discussions goes a long way in sharing those insights. And this is one of the bottom of the page is one of the many Randy Seidl stages that I've been blessed over the years to kind of speak at. And you can see this, the audiences are really looking for those nuggets. They're looking for those best practices and those insights. And on that, we also created this ultimate SKO checklist that I'll post on LinkedIn again today. It's not just the foundational things you need to think about, but really a set of best practices in delivering 40, 50 engagements a year for the last 20 years. I've captured as a framework, as you plan your SKO, as you think about not just now and your, before, but during. And as we're talking about this topic, as you think about after the fact, how do we really and impactfully make this not just an event, but an ongoing series? Randy, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. It's good to see you, and appreciate
you, Noor.
always.
Thanks. All right, my friend. Happy selling, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.